On this edition of the program, we sort through the news bomb. Tom LoBianco and Michael Cohen join us to go through what can be unburdened by what was. It's all coming up. Hello and welcome everybody to the Politics program for July 22nd, 2024. At some point, we'll get back to our normal schedule of Wednesday and Friday uploads. Unfortunately, this week is not going to be that week as we continue to deal with news. The biggest presidential news of my lifetime when it comes to electoral politics, Joe Biden dropping out not but 10 days before he would have officially been the Democratic nominee. We've got to sort through what we made of the Biden campaign, where we're at now, and where we're going now that Kamala Harris is all but the nominee. And to do that, we have to bring in our friends, Michael Cohen and Tom LoBianco. Here we go. While I was at the RNC, and news continued to slowly break, there was an edict that went out in a group chat where we are all constantly updating each other with political news. And that was by Michael Cohen saying that when Biden drops out, there has to be an emergency podcast. And indeed, this podcast has blaring sirens that is coming into your inbox. And so Tom LoBianco of 24 Site and Michael Cohen, the man who wrote the book on the modern political campaign. Welcome back, boys.
Thank you. I'm glad we were able to pull this together.
Okay, so I've got some stuff looking forward, but before we look forward, let's look back at the pressure campaign that built and built and built. I was one of the last holdouts. In fact, I sent out a Substack saying that, explaining what apparently now by reporting was all exactly going to happen this week. The only thing I got wrong was that I thought Biden was such a dead ender, he would just stick it out no matter what. That was not the case. He drops out. What can we say about this now complete elimination of Joe Biden from the top of the ticket, the first that we've seen this late in presidential history?
Well, Justin, you're not the only one who was wrong. I mean, I was loud wrong, saying that the party doesn't decide anything anymore. And I would say the party kind of decided. Yeah. I mean, if you think that one person who's Nancy Pelosi is the party, which she might be, then, I mean, clearly this was a Pelosi operation because, number one, it was in the background. Number two, it was data-driven. And number three, it was stealthy. Like, it was so stealthy that, like, other people were doing her dirty work, like Schiff and Raskin and basically all the goon squad, from Pelosi land were out there saying, this is going to get worse for you. This is going to get worse for you. And so I think to a real extent, what this says is that in times of trouble, generally the parties are consultants now, and I think it really holds up well in the book. But in times of trouble, the party can pull it back. They if they need to, they can pull you back. And if you are somebody who is open to that, like Joe Biden was, Joe Biden was a party guy his whole life. He has a lot of respect for the people around him. There's a lot of caveats to this that only work if you have Joe Biden. If you had Trump, we know what happens with that. Trump stays. Biden, on the other hand, respects the whole apparatus, respects what it means to be an American and what it means to be a Democrat.
A Democrat.
Capital D. Capital D.
Yes.
Yeah, capital D. That this is the moment where the party decided, and it wasn't just Pelosi, to be fair. It was also Schumer. It was also Hakeem Jeffries. It was also all the people that he does respect.
Are we leaving
finally
off one?
Came to him.
Are we leaving off one?
Or two? I'm going to leave off Obama. Yeah, I'm going to leave off Obama because I don't think he respects his point of view on it. I don't think he does. I think he wrote him off. No, I don't. I honestly don't.
No. Whether or not he respects Obama's point of view on it, I don't think that there's any doubt that Obama helped lead this pressure campaign from at least some perspective, at least the media perspective.
Yeah, I think Obama I think that's being
You
overplayed.
think George Clooney is having a letter drafted by the Pod Johns if Obama's not in on this?
But that's not why he left. He left not because of the hand job Pod Johns, whatever the hell they are. I mean, we're talking about the guys. We're talking about the people that really matter to Joe. Like, he's not listening to Pod Save America. He's listening to Obama. He's listening to the people that matter to him, the people that actually run the government. He's listening to Hakeem Jeffries. He's listening to Nancy Pelosi. And he's listening to Chuck Schumer. And then he's listening to the data. Over the time that you saw him interview post-debate, it was always about, show me the data. Show me how I can't win. They finally got to him and finally showed him data that clearly people were trying to hide from him. And eventually they were like, okay, I guess we have to do this. Here you go, Joe. Here's some reading while you're recovering from COVID. That's who I think he really cares about. If it was just Obama, he would have been like, oh, shut up. You didn't even want me to run for president. And by the way, I'm president now.
Yeah.
The big shift is all the other people, the people he actually respects and holds dear in his current job, as opposed to just an affinity for him because they used to work together.
Tom, staying on this party decides element of it. 2016, you have Obama. This is one of the original big wounds for Biden. Tells Biden he can't win the primary. He's not going to endorse him. Hillary Clinton is going to be the person that will lead forward. We see leaked emails that show that there was DNC favoritism toward Hillary Clinton over Bernie Sanders. That is a party decides moment. 2020, you have the big moment after South Carolina where there is a genuine Stop Bernie movement in classic party political tradition. A bunch of candidates drop out to deny Bernie's Super Tuesday delegates that would have really mucked up that convention, at least from the perspective of the party. The party decides again. This time it's late, the latest it's ever been, but is there any argument to say that this is not the third consecutive cycle that the Democratic Party has decided their nominee?
Well, a couple thoughts on this, and I think what Michael points out here about the consultants versus the official party apparatus is really important. I mean, one of the things that I noticed when we were both there in Milwaukee, Cleveland, 2016, Milwaukee.
Long way from Cleveland, both in mileage and spirituality for the Republicans.
One of the things that I noticed was, and it becomes a lot clearer when you have everyone together in one place, were the consultant shops that had reformed behind Trump. I mean, longtime political operations, the Leonard Leo, the CRC, that kind of DeSantis wing of things was certainly back in the fold. FP1, which, at one point in time was a Jeb Bush operation, is now a Trump operation. So you could really see a lot of that. I was jokingly with sources, calling it the reforming of Pangea. And that's certainly, you could see a lot of that. But, for the Democrats, it's really fascinating. Pelosi, if you read Molly Ball's book, and Susan Page did a great biography. I need to read that one of Nancy Pelosi.
They're both very good. Page is great.
See, this is like Nancy D'Alessandro out of Baltimore, my hometown.
Yeah.
Working at the foot of her mother in the wood-paneled row homes of Little Italy. And the mechanics of it. And there's something to be said for the mechanics, because I was talking just before we hopped on here. I was talking with a veteran campaign source who was noting how terrible Obama and his team were at mechanics, how decrepit they left the Democratic Party in the states, your ground troops. Pelosi understands this in a mechanical way, and really, I mean, watching it again, the hidden hand, masterful. I mean, that was masterful in a similar way as the Trump campaign's messaging has been masterful under two other veteran operatives, Susie Wiles and Chris LaCivita. So she got it. I mean, it's really remarkable. Obama could never do that. The Clintons played it clean, on the surface, while James Carville, tossed the grenades in the room. But You know, you have to wonder how much of this is Biden himself. Again, as reality hits, that's a big thing, because, you know, look at how he was reacting to everybody saying this over the last few weeks. He was getting very Trumpy. He was digging in. He was like, well, you people are out to get me, and I don't like no elites. I mean, yet another American president who says he doesn't like elites.
Yeah.
Was he running an outsider campaign too?
Exactly, right?
He was starting to behave in that bunker mentality. But at the end of the day, he pulled back. And that's really remarkable. I mean, the last time we had this was LBJ in '68. And I would caution everyone listening, there's a lot of good allegories to 1968. It's not complete. All right. And for God's sakes, don't talk about the Vietnam War. There is no Vietnam War going on right now. I heard a certain CNN commentator who's not very brilliant make this comment, and it was, don't do that, please. There's other great allegories.
I think there are parallels to protest movements, but there's nothing that will sear in the same way as watching American troops go to die in Vietnam for a war that they don't really understand. Let's swing to the Biden side of this. Now that we have seen this campaign in its completion, I've been saying for the past few weeks that this is the worst campaign that I have ever seen in my entire life. Is this now the consensus when we etch it on the epitaph?
Are we going to me on this one?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I've got a pin that says "Finish the job."
Yeah.
from the Biden campaign.
You're literally on the button.
Job's not finished. You know, but he's tapped out.
I have my Free on Wednesdays T-shirt, which is because they didn't sell merch for the Titanic, so I had to a few weeks ago say, like, all right, I'm pretty sure that Biden's debate is going to be the worst campaign decision in the history of modern campaigns, and if they're selling merch for it, I have to own a piece of it because it was so disastrous. And by the way, we're not even a month out. That happened less than a month ago, and we are where we are right now. Joe Biden dropped out of his reelection run, and we had an assassination of his opponent in the middle of it.
And then we had another assassination by Pelosi.
Yes.
We did.
The Lord Almighty.
Yeah. Let me just jump on to Tom's point.
He found the Lord Almighty for sure, and she was wearing a pantsuit and eating Jenny's ice cream.
Yeah, and he leaves on Ice Cream Day. I mean, what's more Joe Biden than leaving on Ice Cream Day? But to Tom's point, I mean, this is the reason why it's Pelosi and not Obama. Obama was never a party guy. He was an insurgent. He won as an insurgent. He governed as an insurgent. He didn't care what the party thought, only until he needed something. And then his piece aligned with what Ms. D'Alessandro wanted, and the two of them got Obamacare through. So, and without her, it doesn't happen. So again, like if you're looking at where's Obama in this, Obama is not very relevant at this point. And actually, if you read the reporting and you take it at face value, which maybe you don't, he doesn't want to be. He wants to ride in on the white horse and claim unity and all that kind of stuff. So we're done there. We should.
All I'll say is that in 2016 and 2020, he did have a very big hand in this, and so I understand that the hand.
It's
that
different
holds
when
the
you're
blame.
out. It's different when you're out. You know, when you're in, you really get to sort of at least play with the toys. But when you're out, it's like it's somebody else's toys.
He wasn't in 2020, and he helped organize that Stop Bernie movement.
You know, the party did not want Bernie. I mean, give the party some credit. The party didn't want Bernie. It's not like Obama was moving anybody to do something that they didn't want to do.
I mean, consider what
Nancy Pelosi moved people to do things they did not want to do. That is the definition of power. It is not moving people to do things they want to do. That's called coaching. Okay? Yeah. Power is different than coaching. Obama is a coach and Pelosi is a power player.
Yeah. Look at the first one to fall in line behind Biden against Bernie in 2020 was the new generation of the Democratic Leadership Council, Pete Buttigieg.
Yep.
Right? It was the second gen Clinton.
Right.
So, I mean, the way that they all came together But, again, and this is remarkable, too, to watch in the last, 24 hours now. It's only been 24 hours, a long time.
I think less than,
My
yeah.
God.
Oh, it's
How do they do this to us on a Sunday? So we can't even drink it off. We have to go into Monday. I mean, come on, man.
I took
not
all 8
helpful.
hours of sleep last
Not
night.
helpful.
Everything I could get.
Seriously,
It's
going to be a week.
The way that it was remarkable, and again, this gets to the Democratic Party as a party. The Trump Party is one person with consultants and groups of consultants glued together by really two things: by Trump and immigration. And after that, it starts to fray.
Yeah.
And the Democrats look at, it's actually really fascinating how, politically speaking, normal this response has been to Biden getting out, which is incredibly historic. You had the unions, you had the factions of the Democratic Party come together, labor. All right. You had Latino voter groups coming in. You had the state party delegations, and this gets to the meat of it. How is a presidential nominee selected? By delegates who cast a vote. And yesterday we saw, one of the first ones out the gate was the South Carolina Democratic delegation. Jim Clyburn, the guy that got Biden there 4 years ago, is now the one getting Kamala Harris there. It's remarkable, and to me is I've been covering Republicans so long that it's almost new how normal the Democrat, for me at least, how normal the Democratic process is here in a long-term sense historically, because endorsements matter. You see this, you see the party pulling together, and it's remarkable how cohesive it has been. And you have to wonder also, too, how much of that was lined up ahead of time. I mean, talk about historic hemming and hawing going into this thing. That was 4 weeks of ums and hums and decisions that were made and unmade.
Yeah. Hold on. Wait, but before we get into the hosannas of the great and powerful Democratic Party, let's also understand that this could have happened last year. This could have happened during the primaries. It could have happened 2 years ago. It is taking place at a time where right now there is tremendous, I would say, a car crash survivor hopium on the Democratic side, that they have survived what you guys have mentioned. And I think now we can see a self-defeating heat ray from inside the party to dislodge their sitting president, something that we have never seen in our lifetime, and no one knows what comes after this. But if the party was so powerful, then why did it get to this point where they were 10 days away from a virtual roll call to make Joe Biden the nominee officially?
Your answer is Joe Biden. Your answer is Joe Biden. Joe Biden.
So he was powerful enough then, but he was not powerful enough this weekend.
Well, he became Wizard of Oz, right? You saw what was behind the curtain, and then they realized, oh man, this guy can't take out Trump. And so this is all externally driven, but the reason why they held it together was because Biden was able to hold it together reasonably well in public, even though, of course, you've seen the stumbles and stuff like that. But those got kind of baked into things. Which really should have happened was that if Joe Biden really wanted to be courageous and not be dislodged, which is basically what happened here, he should have decided to take the quote-unquote win, because it wasn't a real win after the midterms, and say, you know what, we're in pretty good shape. We had a decent job. I'm going to step out, let the party decide over the next 2 years, and then ride off into the sunset. I think basically what it came down to was that he decided there was still more things he wanted to do, because as soon as you say that in Washington, you're done as a president. Okay, they started ignoring you. You don't get the CHIPS Act done. You don't get a few other things done. Yeah. He felt he probably could get a few other things across the finish line. Even he probably believed in his own hopium that he can get immigration across the finish line, which was never going to happen. But there was probably a few things that he talked himself into that I need 2 more years to really get done. Because as soon as you say that you're out, it's over. Like, they will ignore you. They're going to focus on the next people, and that's it. And so I think that there was a political calculation there. And there's also, don't underestimate the personal calculation of somebody who strove his entire life for this. He wanted 4 years. He didn't want 2. and he didn't want 3, he wanted 4.
No, he wanted 8. He wanted 8. He was 10 days away from being there for 8.
No. He was 10 days away from getting nominated to lose the other 4.
Intentions.
He was going to get 4.
He was manifesting.
He's the only one who's manifesting because everything else was going the other direction. There's no way.
That is Mike Connell in erasure. Go ahead.
Yeah. Those guys did him no favors. Sorry. The people who are close to you,
they are going to be dropped from the rafters with the balloons.
There's going to be they're going to be actually on the edge of the Jeeps that are driving across the country instead of cans like just married. Just killed, okay? That's on the back of the window.
Analysis and satire, everybody. We're laughing. It's analysis and satire.
They're not going to kill these guys. Let's understand that. They're not going to.
Now their careers are over.
Yeah, there is no Pod Save America for these guys landing spot. It is over. They'll be lucky to get on corporate boards when this thing is all over.
Yeah. Yeah. Although, if we're going to take a look from one of the big winners of the weekend, Mark Halperin, sometimes there is redemption, even if it's on some off-brand app that nobody has.
I wouldn't say redemption, but at least it's like a clock that doesn't work. It's right twice a day. He was and he was loud right. So
right. He got it down to
Mark Halperin, and if you don't harass women and other things, maybe you have another second act on this planet. But you got to do a bit more.
We could all hear it from the shadow realms of where people who are Me Too get banished.
He teased a book, by the way, and it's not about Me Too. It'll be about this.
I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure it is, and I'm sure we'll all be thrilled for it.
Can't wait.
So any final thoughts here about Biden before we become unburdened by what has been and think about what can be?
Yeah, I'll say this, there were moments where I said to myself, gosh, is this even going to happen? I kind of went back and forth where okay, the smart thing is this, you have to get out. This was 3 weeks ago. But I was really on the bubble as to, okay, well, it's Sunday. I have plans today. It's supposed to happen today. Is this going to happen? And so I think to a real extent, it's always shocking when history actually happens, even though you could see it coming.
Yeah.
And I think you also have to give credit to Biden to making the decision that we all knew had to happen, but didn't have to happen. And because he did it, we now have a new race. And, there's opportunity for us to look at this in a very different way. And, he made it very difficult on Kamala Harris, but at least Kamala Harris has a shot. And we'll turn to the campaign soon, but if Kamala Harris doesn't win, well, then he's done not only himself a good legacy project, but he's also cleared the decks of him and Kamala Harris, because there's no way she'll be able to get the nomination the next time after running this time. I think she'd run, but who knows? But anyway, point being, he's cleared the decks of all the other things and put the focus back on Trump, which is where the election wanted to be if you're a Democrat.
Yeah.
Tom, any final Biden thoughts?
Yeah, it is. I mean, so much of this is so remarkable. I mean, this entire campaign, and I've said this a number of times before. It is really remarkable to me the amount of historic moments that we have had in this short period, just this year. I mean,
9 days.
Last year,
just this month.
Yeah, last year we had criminal indictments of a former president.
Oh yeah,
that was astounding. It's coming into this year. It clearly that everyone got behind Trump, and that was the end of that. And then we have a Supreme Court ruling expanding presidential powers, and obviously this has all started with Biden's ghost debate performance. I mean, just his inability to show up, and the assassination attempt, and all these things. Each one of these things alone is historic, and I was always shocked. I mean, we talked about this right after the assassination attempt. This will change everything, because in a normal world, it absolutely should. Somebody tried to kill the leading contender for the president of the United States and a former president at that. In a normal world, that absolutely would change things, and it didn't. And I don't.
Well, we don't know. We still haven't even seen the polls from that because that got stepped on by the convention, and now we have this. Like we have no idea how it affected the race.
Well, the numbers that we've seen coming out are still pretty static. I mean, so they try to kill a guy. You know, like it should be like. I mean, that should be outside the margin of error.
Well, but Michael, you're the poll guy. You need like 7 days to get high quality polls, right?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is like, Trump gets shot like now 10 days ago, right?
10 whole days.
Right. And so like, if you want to go into the field, you probably don't go into the field on Sunday because people are just starting to learn about it. So you go into the field on Monday, you do a 4-day sweep, and you're basically at the end of the week when all the talk is about whether or not Biden's going to leave. So that's conflating this whole thing. And the convention, which you would expect to get a bump out of. And then all of a sudden your opponent leaves. So like we need to all take a breath here because the polling can't figure it out. There's too much noise in what's going on. It's what we call an historical effect. When there's actual history, this is an actual historical effect. What you normally do in polling is you say, okay, take all the big stuff out of the way and then figure out what's going on along the path. There's too many things in the mix right now. So we now need to wait clearly until the end of the week for everyone to digest all of this stuff. And good luck if you're trying to figure out whether it was the assassination attempt, the GOP convention that you guys went to. By the way, big ups to you guys for coming home safe. And then, Biden leaving. I mean, you got 3 things in the mix. So don't tell me you know what's going on. Oh, and the 4th, which would be Kamala Harris being named as, probably by the end of the day, the prohibitive favorite for the nomination. So you have those 4 things, and you're going to tell me you know what's going on? Oh, no way. You need a couple of weeks for this thing to breathe. And by the time we get to that, we may get to the roll call. And by the time we get to that, by the time we're not going to know what's going on in this race until, I don't know, mid-August.
Yeah.
I mean,
All right.
This thing is way in the air. I'm so happy I'm not polling on this right now because I don't know what in the world you would tell your clients. Believe this? No way. No. You could be like, okay, people are just trying to process this, and this is an in-process poll. That's if you say that if you want to get paid. But if you actually want to be truthful with your clients, you go, just keep your money. We'll talk again in mid-August.
I mean, and I think this was brought up on another podcast I was listening to. Like, who do you in a poll consider a likely voter when there's been an assassination and a late-term LBJ within a week of each other? Like, there's no. It's the biggest news in the world. Everybody has heard about one or both, but even then, it's like, how do you adjust for who should be or would be voting in this scenario?
Well, and Justin, who do you list as the freaking candidates? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to do it, you put up Kamala Harris's name. But I mean, as we rolled this morning, Bashir dropped out. Manchin was in, then he was out. Has anyone seen J.B. Pritzker this morning? I mean, like there's probably a number of like white males who are still left in this race who could plausibly run. I mean, Gavin Newsom is out. Buttigieg endorsed. I mean, go through the list of these people. They're all either running for VP or running from this race, which is what I would counsel. Do not get on this ticket if you want a future in politics. Just let it roll. I mean, this is the most unpredictable way to somehow get a nomination. I would stay away from this if I had to counsel any of these people.
We are going to get into what we know right now and what we will know going forward right after the break. But before we do, literally just breaking as we are talking, Nancy Pelosi has endorsed Kamala Harris. So now it's essentially over. If the hidden blade has now revealed, exactly who she's looking for. So,
it has Irish blood on it.
It does. It does. By the way, now 0 for 2.
It has COVID too, so be careful.
Yeah, 0 for 2 on Catholic second terms. We'll take a break and we will come back.
Tough.
This is your update brought to you by TakePoliticsSeriously.com. That's where you go to support this show. Been a popular destination for y'all these days. TakePoliticsSeriously.com. That's where you get 2 bonus episodes. For those of you that got in the main feed, the emergency podcast on Joe Biden dropping out. That normally is reserved only for patron folks. That when the president drops out of the, race, then we expand it a little bit. But Patreons did not leave without a little bonus, because I also went live for another hour after that, and they got that in MP3 form delivered directly to the podcatchers of their choice. By the way, that's what happens when you sign up at the $3 level or above at TakePoliticsSeriously.com. You get a custom RSS feed. You can throw it in any podcatcher that you would like. Boy, howdy, especially these days. It is something that pays off. For the price of a cup of coffee, support the show. TakePoliticsSeriously.com. 2 bonus episodes for the $3 tier. During a House Oversight Committee hearing on Monday, Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle faced bipartisan calls for her resignation following an assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. Committee Chair Representative James Comer and top Democrat Representative Jamie Raskin criticized Cheadle for what she admitted was a colossal failure in preventing the attack. In fact, both of them, and let me tell you this, Jamie Comer and Jamie Raskin, aside from answering to the same first name, don't agree on much. They both signed a letter saying that Cheadle should resign effective immediately. Raskin emphasized the loss of congressional confidence in her leadership. Representative Pat Fallon, a Republican from Texas, highlighted the security breach, noting the gunman's ease in passing Secret Service defenses to fire at Trump during the rally. Cheadle acknowledged the agency's shortcomings, but provided limited information on the internal review and timeline of the events. Lawmakers expressed frustration with her vague responses and the 60-day review period. Cheadle admitted agents failed to prevent the gunman from reaching the vantage point 150 yards from Trump's lectern, from which he fired 8 shots, killing 1 rallygoer. Despite the committee's probing, Cheadle could not provide details on when the Secret Service sniper team was alerted to the threat. I did not watch all of this. I did watch a bit of it. It was frustrating. The lapse of security for somebody as a high value of a target as Donald Trump is troubling. And even though we have certainly had enough news to keep us occupied between then and now, the fact that we have zero idea of how this operational failure happened. She then gets hauled in front of Congress, can't answer questions. We don't really know why she can't answer questions. Troubling. Very, very troubling. U.S. Vice President and now, as we've been discussing, presumptive Democratic nominee for president, Kamala Harris's campaign said on Monday that it had raised $81 million in the first 24 hours after announcing that she would seek the Democratic presidential nomination. In a statement, the party said that the amount reflects money, quote, raised across the campaign, Democratic National Committee, and joint fundraising committees. They also said that 880,000 donations were first-time donations to the campaign. Those are what you want to watch for. Although, you never know with this kind of stuff until the FEC paperwork is filed. A gaudy number, a gigantic va-va-va-voom number. This, I assume, is benefited, right? You don't want to take the number away. It is benefited by 2 things. Number 1, there had been a freeze on donations that was going into the Biden campaign. So this is probably a little bit of campaign money that was going to go in there anyway. And 2, when you're a cabal of donors that gets a president to no longer run for president, price on the package goes up. That's a premium. That is an off-menu item. Getting to palace coup a president. And finally, the meeting between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and U.S. President Joe Biden will likely not be held tomorrow due to the latter still being sick with COVID, a source in the Prime Minister's entourage told the Times of Israel. The White House has said Biden is quarantining in Delaware and will return to Washington, D.C. once he tests negative without offering a more detailed time frame. And so, amongst everything else, we've got the Secret Service stuff. We've got Kamala Harris less than 24 hours away from essentially becoming the nominee. And then we have this little sideshow. Where's Joe? Joe quit the race. Joe did it via a letter posted to social media. There was no photo, a still photo accompanying him. You know, we had heard rumors that he does not want to appear until he is functionally able to speak, knowing that his words are going to be something that will define his life. But we do know he really, 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 really wanted to meet with Benjamin Netanyahu. There are few things that Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., the 46th president of the United States, likes to do more than meet with Benjamin Netanyahu consistently throughout his career. So the fact that that's not going to happen is odd. All right, I'm not going to fall down any kind of gigantic rabbit holes here, but I will say that can we get some kind of little picture, you know? Something to suggest that Joe Biden is doing okay? Just, you know, maybe. Maybe, you want to know what? Here's a way that you could show proof of life, President Biden. Go to takepoliticsseriously.com, sign up at the $3 tier, and then send me a message. Let me know you're okay, and then I'll tell the world. It looks like you're going to have some time on your hands. TakePoliticsSeriously.com is where you need to go. $3 tier gets you 2 bonus episodes each and every week. Now back to our convo with Tom and Mike. All right, coming back.
My God,
It can't get more macabre. It really.
wow.
Look, don't blame me. Blame God.
Let Joe know it was me.
Blame the Lord Almighty.
Yeah.
Okay. Where at noon yesterday, Biden's letter comes out at 1:00. At noon yesterday, where is this race? Because I think it's the last moment that we have any idea of where we're going. And it's going to be what we look back and judge whatever change from this race comes. Tom, in your estimation, where were we at noon on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, if you would, as they say in polling, a snapshot in time, if you had the election on a single day at that moment, right before he dropped out, and he had, been nominated virtually, and, all things were in place, Trump would have won. More than likely. I don't go by Nate Silver. Apologies to anybody who likes him. Maybe 538, but all the different numbers were moving in his direction, particularly in the Rust Belt battleground states, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. Those are the must wins. So yeah, if it had been held at 12 o'clock Sunday, July 21st, 2024, Anno Domini, it would have been Trump's and Vance's. I don't know what happens now. I don't know.
Well, here, we will get to that because I got a few things that I want to go over that I think we're going to factor into this. I don't think that there's any big differences that you would have there, Michael, if there is anything where the race stood.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a borderline landslide. I mean, you end up in situations where if it was, if we were saying it was on Sunday at 12 o'clock, well, let's say Sunday at 12 o'clock, everyone was still in November, right?
Yeah.
I think that what happens is that between, and this is how the mechanics of the campaign work, you start expanding the map. So you start putting other places in place. Like you probably pick up New Mexico, which means you lose a Senate seat if you're Democrats. You may even pick up New Jersey, which would be unbelievably crazy. And
also a Senate seat, for the record.
Also a Senate seat, right. You lose the Senate, you end up in a situation where you are borderline, if not already there, in a filibuster-proof Senate. So, and you have the House. And so you end up in a situation where Trump sweeps, but the size of the sweep is so dramatic that, you know, if everyone's worried about the 2025 project or whatever it is that Trump has disavowed, whatever Trump wants to do, he'd be able to do without changing any of the rules. So that's where we end up. We end up in a place where Trump has every bit of power that he ever wanted, and then we roll into 2 years from then to see, you know, in my opinion, if we have if we have elections, or if the quality of the country has completely changed. So I think to you know, Tom is right, Trump wins, but I think what you look at is you look at the size of that win, and that win is enormous. It is the landslide that Trump talks about.
Yeah, you are more, and I think that I would agree with you. I am more on the Nate Silver side of, like, there was beginning to be an opening up of some really historic stuff. And one of the polls that may or may not have been the final anvil to land on the head of Biden 2024 was that public poll in Michigan that had Trump up 7, which is an outlier compared to anything else that's been released publicly, but
outside the margin of error.
Yeah, that is way outside the margin of error.
Small sample size too. It was only 600, if I remember correctly. On statewide polls, you want to go at least 800, if not 1,000, if it's an important battleground state. But still, it was sort of like, you know, a clear noise where you're looking for the signal, right? To use Nate's kind of construction.
Yeah.
And so, to me, it was that, but it was also the idea that you were hearing from mainline Democrats, I'm going to lose my race. And I won by 6 last time. And, you know, other people from like the NRSC and the NRCC and also from the campaign saying, yeah, we're expanding the map from people who lost by 5 points to people who, you know, lost by 11. Like, that was the calculation where you saw the campaign move. And that's where the money was going to go. That's where the candidate was going to go. Again, my whole joke about last time that Trump was going to go to Scranton. Well, Trump was probably going to end up in Scranton, you know? And so those are the things you start looking about in a campaign where you're saying, okay, what's changed here? So I think that's where we ended up.
All right. So we understand that nobody knows anything right now. Anybody who tells you that they know what's going to happen, they are lying. And if anybody is right by telling you a thing that's going to happen right now, it means that they guessed correctly. So we on the PX3 program are not going to give you any bold proclamations. But I figured this was going to be a good way that we could at least assess some of my priors to throw it out to the council and see what you guys think might happen, what the possibilities are. So these are things that I believe I know about the race based on things that have happened in the past. We will see how burdened they might be going forward. Here's the first. Kamala Harris is a terrible campaigner and a very flawed candidate. This is something that in 2020 proved to us. I mean, her campaign, talk about leaks, that might be the only thing that leaked more than the Biden campaign in their death throes. It was an absolute knife fight. Her sister got involved. They fired 2 campaign managers. I think they burnt through $100 million worth of campaign money, and they didn't even make it to Christmas, let alone the Iowa caucus. That was after nuking Joe Biden on stage and then getting nuked by Tulsi Gabbard. Yeah. So that's what we know. How does that go forward? Do we have any sense that she is a more disciplined campaigner, or is she even going to be running her campaign?
Yeah, and I'll have a write-up on this actually after we hop off the pod here. I need to wrap it up over at 24site.news. We saw
breaking news, baby.
Yeah, baby. To number 24sight.news. All right, folks. Look, we just saw her first appearance at the White House, celebrating the NCAA college champion athletes. All right?
Yeah.
And what was remarkable about that to me was that it was short, it was brief, and she hit the notes that you need to. She praised Biden. She talked about his son, Beau Biden, not the other one. And she praised his history, And even in her remarks specifically about the students, talked about teamwork makes the dream work. And that was the theme of that part, and then got out. And that would be considered normal and boring 10 years ago. That's the type of thing that would have lost you a Democratic primary in '08 or 12 maybe, or 16. It's the type of thing which wouldn't have gone anywhere. But in these times, normal is strange. And I think if she can do that, I was talking with one of my Democrats about this a couple hours ago. She has a different operation here. Some of this came out of California in 2020, and we all know that the Bay Area politically is its own bubble. California is a nation unto itself, and I mean any kind of provincial bubble thinking you might get out of other states. I mean, God knows that's amplified out in California. She's been in the White House now for 4 years. There is a pre-existing. Look at who her spokesperson is. The campaign spokesperson, at least at this time right now, is Biden's spokesperson, Lauren Hitt. And if you look at this, if they can maintain the Biden campaign apparatus, minus obviously the consultants who did not do a very good job with this, as we have noted, but if you can keep that campaign apparatus in place, and if the problem in 2020 was more of a problem of the consultants and less of a problem of the principal, then I think she does good. But
you are not selling me, Tom. You are not selling me.
Tom, look, I love you. I love you, man, Tom, but this is a terrible campaign. They were off on message. They were off on. They were sputtering on fundraising. They did not have the people out where they needed to be. They were running a bad campaign. This was actually as a guy who wrote this, the book. I mean, you go through the things that you would care about on a campaign, and honestly, I mean, fundraising was bad. Independent groups weren't activated. The opposition research wasn't strong enough. Yeah. The vulnerability research wasn't great. The data and analytics wasn't maximizing. The focus groups and polling was weak. The earned media, paid media, and social media were all over the place. They got
a lot of earned media. It just wasn't earned media that was.
Yeah, but I mean, it wasn't for you, for the campaign, right? I mean, and so those are the first 12 chapters of my book, right? And so if you look down and you break down what they're doing, just because it was a professional operation that looks a little better from the outside looking in, how they were executing wasn't exactly great. So I think what's going to happen is that Kamala will bring in other people. She will try to put her stamp on it. They will, quote unquote, you'll hear a lot of stories like this, Tom. You'll probably be even reporting on them. They're tightening up the operation. They're getting, the messaging is going to be much sharper. The people are going to be out in droves because they're activated. The fundraising spiked over the weekend because of her, because they're engaged and excited. So the voter enthusiasm is going to be much higher. So I think a lot of those things that you're going to see are actually reflections of how the campaign is going to be operating. And so I think that what you're going to find is that the campaign, if it does well, is going to get a lot of those stories. If it does bad, you're going to hear chaos, infighting, a lot of the things that we saw, in Kamala won. And I think the other thing too, and Tom, I saw the same thing you saw with at the White House. I was impressed by the whole thing. I thought she got up there. I thought she filled the suit. I thought she didn't try to do too much, which is where Kamala gets into trouble. She didn't try and ham it up, and try and be like everyone's friend up there. She took command of the podium, then she passed it off. And that's what she has to understand, is that she's no longer at the sorority house. She's now the presumptive nominee for president of the United States. It's not running for president of your house. I ran for president of my house, and I remember that. And so this is not a slam on her. I had that lived experience. And it's a different campaign, okay? She needs to be president and be presidential and then have a team behind her. So I wouldn't say that, for example, O'Malley stays, and the whole team, I mean, they're all either going to be sent home or layered very quickly by Kamala people. And then on top of all of that, some of the vendors will probably change out because, man, I mean, I'm sorry, but the research team, you know, and I know the people on that team, they're good, but they didn't get what they needed out of that team. You know, the fundraising team, I mean, they will have different people coming through on this, and it'll get stronger. But on the ground, and this is where I think that they've been lacking, they're not set up in places now where they should be. And I think that that's the part of the operation that, like, Justin, you were talking earlier about like what Obama could do. Obama could do that for them. You know, go around the country, get those people fired up to go to those campaign offices, to knock doors and to hand out flyers and to do events. And so I think we're going to learn a lot about how far Kamala Harris has come in 4 years pretty soon. And it's going to be leading up to the convention, how the convention goes, and then from there, because there's only so much Nancy Pelosi could do here, and she's done all she can.
She's done.
And now she's passing it off.
There's one more
thing.
There's one more thing that Nancy could do. And that is, if we don't see a bounce, and if the numbers in a week and a half look like they looked at noon on Sunday,
she's not going to kneecap. She's not going to kneecap Kamala from.
No, not Kamala. First woman president right now. Why do we have to wait?
Oh,
Joe, why don't you?
No. I think that ship's sailed. That ship's sailed.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I mean, that actually is what I wanted after the debate. Like, I looked at that, and I told you guys this in private, and I'll say it here. What we watched at that debate was not a projection of how you're going to do in 4 years. It was a health event, and because it happened, what's going to happen over the next few months is it's going to be GOP running against Biden and Harris at the same time. They're going to try to impeach him. You've heard the calls for resignation. There'll be investigations. They'll bring people up to the Hill. There's going to be court, cases certainly in the battleground states, but maybe even all 50 states trying to keep her off the ballot. I mean, just even if it's a smokescreen, even if it's not going to do anything, they just want to keep you remembering how Biden stayed in too long and how Kamala covered up for it. That's all they want.
And by the way, there was a big Wall Street Journal article that recounted a story that I believe was in Franklin Foer's book, where I forget which big legislation, but the progressives were holding out. Biden comes down. Nancy brings him in to have Biden give a big rousing speech that he needs to say, vote for the bill. And in Foer's book, it's looked at as like, oh, Biden was just too excited and he was too much of Scranton Joe in the Union Hall, and he forgot to say vote for the bill. And then in this Wall Street Journal version of it, which I'm going to take a wild guess and say that that's probably closer to the reality, is that it's the reason why Dean Phillips ran. He's like, this guy is out to lunch, and that was 2 years ago. That was not recently. So I do think that is a liability going forward. But before we get more into Biden, because I do want to get into his record, Kamala as a candidate, part of the reason why she failed wasn't just the fact that she ran a bad campaign, which she did, and she was not able to hone in on her message. She wasn't able to, after a really hot start, be able to go forward with it. But she also didn't have a constituency. She wasn't able to find who her natural voters were in Iowa or any of the other states going forward. She was not a natural vote for black voters, let alone black women. She certainly was not there for white voters. And while obviously it's too late in the game for people, Democrats, to have any quibbles about whether or not it's her, because it's going to be her, and we're very late in this process, I do wonder, because in this cycle, 100 days is going to feel like 50 years, if when the novelty wears off, and when you guys are like, oh, she did a great job with this 3-second this 3-second thing. It's like, look, that's because right now the expectations for the Democratic candidate for president are Honey, I Shrunk the Kids level on the floor. So yes, her being able to come and do that is
Justin, there's also
good.
Performance. No, that's underselling. She easily could have got it up there and reminded you how much you hated Kamala Harris in 2020. Easily could have happened.
She avoided that the first time she opened her mouth. That's fine. I'm saying that this is going to be a long campaign, and people are going to see more of what they have seen in the past going forward. I wonder where her coalition is, and I specifically wonder whether or not that coalition plays with the 3 states that they need to win more than anything else, and that is Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania.
Well, a couple of things here. Look, it's when you are a candidate and you win all the time, and this was Biden, all right, for the most part, with the exception of these the Democratic primaries, but a long stretch of a successful career, which ultimately led him to the White House twice, first as vice president and then as president. Mm-hmm. When you spend a career winning and not losing dramatically, you don't learn anything. And this, we've seen this before, in Massachusetts, people will talk about, the locals will talk about this frequently, Dukakis 1 and Dukakis 2. All right. Dukakis, when he was in from 75 to 79, he struggled. All right. And then he spent 4 years in exile and came back and was incredibly successful, which is what eventually made him the nominee. And you see this here. I was talking with somebody earlier about this. Losing was probably good for Harris in this case in 2020 because it forces you to reassess things. Again, now, does that change anything? I don't know that it does, but there's the sting of loss personally already there. Now, of course, she was very quickly put on the ticket after that, so it didn't have an awful lot of time to sink in. But you have to wonder personally. Now, 2, will she be able to perform and keep the focus on Trump? One of the problems with the debate was not just that Biden looked so terrible. Trump sounded crazy by his own standards up there, talking about black jobs and Hispanic jobs. And we've been conditioned to what are normal, quote unquote, normal Trump talking points. But if you can create that contrast and get the media to go along with it too, if you can get the media to start paying more attention, that has the potential to change this dynamic. Again, if you start hearing more about Trump, black jobs, Hispanic jobs, stuff like this, that has the potential to cut into it. But again, it's based on how they act, how they behave.
I know that.
I will say, Trump wants people to make that to be a big thing. Now, that's specific. I don't think that Trump, you need to put the focus back on Trump. This has to be about a referendum on Trump, no matter what, for the Democrat to win, Kamala Harris to win. But black jobs, I always thought that was a reach. And everybody knows what a black job is. Everybody knows what a Hispanic job is. And that's exactly what Trump wants to talk about, is that if you feel economic pain, and specifically for black men, which we were there in the Fiserv Forum, how many of those speakers, Tom, were specifically talking not to black people, not to minority voters writ large, not to POCs, black men. Amber Rose is on that stage because take a look who follows her on IG. Black men follow her on IG.
Right. Yeah, she doesn't go on OnlyFans for black women, Anyway, point being, look, here's the thing about Kamala Harris. Let's get back to what you were talking about earlier, which I think is really interesting. About those states. Yes. Does Kamala Harris flip you back to Michigan? I don't know. Does Kamala Harris get you back to Wisconsin? What about Kamala Harris leads you to believe that you can recreate the Joe Biden coalition? Yeah. Part of the Joe Biden coalition is because it was Joe Biden. Okay. Yes. What states and this is the thing that is really the core of this campaign right now. How much of the Joe Biden coalition can Kamala Harris absorb and take back? Because right now they've lost it, okay? The Joe Biden coalition gave up on Joe Biden. The question is, can she reassemble the Joe Biden coalition? Look at her background. It is not Joe Biden's, okay?
No.
So in our age where we see these people in very personal terms, what about Kamala Harris says to you, Joe Biden, other than Joe Biden picked you because he said he was going to pick a black female for vice president, okay? Now, you can judge her on her own merits, but the question you have to ask is where does she win where he lost?
Yeah.
At this point, all she's doing is making sure that you don't lose the Senate and the House the way you were going to lose it before. I would say that because you get some people back. But in the conversations I've had with people on a wide spectrum of people, and I understand that we all have our own anecdotes, but I know people who have voted Republican their whole lives and voted for Trump and then voted for Biden after seeing what happened. How many of those people on the margins,
Yes.
those few thousand voters in the right places, how many of those people say, you know what, I pull it for Kamala like I did for Joe because she's equivalent to him? I don't know that that's the case. In fact, I actually see the opposite of it, which is like what happened over the weekend. And I'm going to go into this, and I said we were talking about this privately. For a certain group of white men, they're going to look at this and say, they took the white guy's job, replaced it with a DEI hire, and wow, that happened to me, or wow, that happened to somebody I know. And for those people who have either have gone to MAGA or have been MAGA friendly or have just had that personal experience, it's going to be very hard for some of those people to look past that and say, yeah, but my guy Joe was endorsing her. So there's a lot that's going on here, and I don't think that you're going to see that in polling. In fact, I would say that when the polls finally shake out, Kamala's numbers are going to be higher than where they probably will land. You know how we were having the shy Trump voter effect?
Yeah.
We may have the shy I'm not going to vote at all effect, which is I say in the polling that I'm going to vote for Kamala Harris because that's the right thing to say. But I don't know that I feel comfortable with her doing this based upon how this all rolled out. If Biden, for example, 2 years ago says I'm not running and Kamala wins a primary and wins the whole thing, it's a different ballgame. The way this goes, Pelosi and Harris take out the old guy.
Yeah.
Okay, that is explosive. And if you don't think the GOP is not going to push that button, you haven't been watching politics in the past 10 years. That's going to be pushed every freaking day on social media, but you're going to see it in ads. You're going to see it everywhere, and you're going to see it on the stump. I mean, they're going to say after they destroy Joe Biden, as much as they possibly can, poor Joe Biden. Can you believe what they did to Joe Biden? Can you believe what those women did to Joe Biden? How many of you have had that happen to you? Oh my God. I mean, I'm telling you, that is the soft underbelly of the Harris campaign right now. And if you're doing any research for that campaign, I implore you, go do focus groups of of men who live in the Midwest, who are, Republican voters who voted for Biden, and understand what they're thinking, because your messaging needs to meet that.
Well, and this is
otherwise you're going to be missing it.
This is where I think you heard the calls for people like Gretchen Whitmer or someone like that, because there's an ability for her to hold a rifle that doesn't look ridiculous in a way that if Kamala Harris realizes, oh my God, I have a major problem with white working class men, she can't show up to the UFC event. She can't go to WrestleMania and act like everything is awesome and cool and normal. She's not going to be able to do that. Let me go to Joe Biden. And here's the other thing that I believe. Yes, Joe Biden's age was a major problem, and it's the complicating factor that gets him tossed out. But one of the things that we have seen, and it is to as you pointed out, Michael Cohen, the failure of his campaign to protect their weaknesses and accentuate their strengths, is that Joe Biden was running as if everybody understands that he has a great record that everybody is thrilled about. That's not the case, but that we're now in a very complicated situation for Kamala going forward, because this isn't a primary where she can run away from the record. She's still the vice president. Joe Biden is still the president. So she is tied to that record. Tom, how does that change? What wiggle room do we see, especially on some of the issues that have been a huge problem, the economy, the border, and is there a new way that she can reframe the argument on abortion, which might be the most important thing that she should be able to do as a female candidate?
Well, I do think that the one unifying thing here is that we will be hearing a lot about Project 2025. And I suspect that, anecdotally, when I was out in Milwaukee, talking with bartenders, right? This is very typical reporter. So there we are.
Uber drivers and bartenders. The takeout meal of journalism. Like when you gotta knock it out, when you're really on deadline. Those two.
I was shocked at how independently when people would bring up Project 2025. And that to me was really surprising. So if they can frame the messaging on that, which they've already done a very good job of.
Those are bartenders in Milwaukee, though. I mean, not exactly swing voters.
It's right. I don't, look, I think on a couple of things here. Number one, these are political professionals who made this decision and pushed Biden out. So they think they've made a determination that their chances were better with Harris than they were with Biden. Now, is that good enough to keep the White House? Yes, it's right. Marginally.
Is it? But by how much? You're right, but I wonder by how much.
I don't know, and I don't know.
We'll find out.
I do. I think another thing too. Don't forget this. When Clinton ran in 2016, so much of this was particularly for women voters and for younger women, identifying with women, identifying with the chance of having a woman president, and there's something instinctive, innate about that you just don't see. That could potentially help out there. This is the flip side of the UFC gender coin.
Yep.
The other side of that as well is assuming that every working class white man is a Hulkamaniac. I'm not sure that's the case. But so, and again, if we are in a base election, as some people have written about, Mike Madrid has been doing a lot of very good tweeting on this, long form. And I've, Twitter. Elon Musk, as he's gotten more active in this campaign, and Twitter's only gotten worse. But Mike Madrid has written about this, about energizing base, energizing turnout. And of course, Madrid is the one of the co-founders of the Lincoln Project, longtime California Republican, was very active in Arnold Schwarzenegger's operation years and years ago. If you can activate your base and get your base excited, because God knows the Democratic and the centrist base has not been excited, quote unquote, the pro-democracy coalition has not been excited. I judge these things based on who I hear from, who I haven't heard from in a while. Friends back home, the first thing that woke people up was the debate. People checked out for years a couple of years after January 6th. Nobody wanted to hear about it anymore. Yeah. The debate woke people up. Biden dropping out. Yep. This
is a coaster from the Ray Gun store in Iowa. Yet another great journalistic tradition to stop into the Ray Gun store. But election 2024, welp, I guess we're doing this again, which now is different.
Gone.
We're not doing this again.
Gone. We're not finishing the job either. Yeah, we're done. All the political merch is gone.
The job finished us.
Yeah, Justin, and Tom, I think the thing about the 2025 project, I think that is a marginal issue. But it's important enough that Trump now has that as a feature of all of his speeches. I don't know those people. I have my own, big, beautiful, platform.
Agenda 47.
Agenda 47, right. Agenda 47, right. And so so what I'm saying is I'll bet you Tony Fabrizio and his team, who by the way are terrific, they did the research on it, knew it was nuclear, and they're like, boss, go out and trash these people. He's like, yeah, I could throw these people over the bus. I have no problem. I could throw anyone under the bus. I could throw my wife under the bus. No problem. So, this ended up not being an issue for them. So I think we eventually come back to the core issues of the campaign, which is the performance of the administration and the performance of the former administration and the current state of the candidates. You end up with Trump, you end up with Harris, and then you end up with all the issues around them. And to be honest, looking at the issues by themselves, and maybe we'll get to that, but, abortion obviously comes back, right? Because she can speak to it in a very authentic way. But also immigration comes back because she was the person who was the cop at the border. She was the cop at the border. And, the PAC the Republicans, MAGA PAC has already released an ad, which is brilliant. Actually, I'll share it for you guys.
It's already up. It's already up in Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Oh, it's the ad the border ad where there's a very big, beautiful wall, and then there's a truck going through, with Border Patrol on the back, and it's quiet, and it says a moment of Zen on the border. Thank you, President Trump, right? And so, like, that says right away, hey, you know what? Wow, okay, he got something done. And then, oh, the chaos person here is Kamala Harris because she was supposed to come down there and fix it. So she can be measured. She can be all these other things that you would hope that she learned over the past 4 years. But she still has to own that record. And the record is not great. I mean, it's bad. And everybody, from, I don't know, MSNBC to Axios, to the Wall Street Journal have all pounded the administration on it because that's a real thing. And she's got to deal with that. So they don't just live in these bubbles where it's just personalities. There's also issues around them. And that's going to be a big fault line.
All right, let me get into one thing, my last thing I know, and this one's positive for the Democrats. Trump is old. This used to be a race with two old men in which he was the less old man. Now he is the oldest person in this race by a long time. And I was not particularly blown away by Kamala's performance today. But the one thing that I was struck by, as a bunch of student athletes are standing behind her, is that the first time that people have eyes on her as the leading candidate for the Democrats is nothing but 18 to 22-year-olds, the bright, beautiful youth of America, a field of virility, while she, the new hope for the Democratic vision, talks about how amazing everybody is. That was fortuitous timing, fortuitous stagings. They didn't set that up, but I think that is something that they are very much going to want to say, ho, 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 I have a machine gun now. You want to talk about age? Let's talk about age.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and again, inherent. I mean, there's a couple things. There's a couple key dynamics here. This race, everything was so baked in walking into this, and again, this is why I think this has the potential to actually change things in a way these other historic events have not. There's a sort of messaging muscle memory to Biden and Trump that's been built over 5 years. I mean, going back to Trump having a quote-unquote perfect phone call trying to extort an investigation out of Vladimir Zelensky when he was newly elected into Hunter Biden. I mean, on the right, there's a messaging muscle memory to that has not been developed yet for Harris.
I agree with you. It is not as big as Biden, but this has been my big thing. While everybody, the Charlie XCX memes are flying, everyone's getting coconut pilled. Democrats are donating to Act Blue so hard the servers are melting. Like, that's fine, but at a certain point we're gonna wake up and say, yeah, look. Did Trump want to run against Biden? Yeah, it looked like he was going to Reagan roll up him. Of course he wanted to run against Biden. Of course. But if he wasn't going to, Kamala's the 1A. And she is very defined on the right. She is somebody that is extraordinarily caricaturable. And it'd be harder if it were a Bashir. It'd be harder if it were a Whitmer. It'd be harder if it were a Shapiro. Right. Now, you have to spin those guys up to 1,000 miles an hour in 2 seconds, but that just represents the moment that they're in and Biden stepping down. I think that the age thing is a huge gulf that the Democrats have to prosecute.
Justin, to your point about age, what was to take your point of view of the previous conversation we were having, on Sunday at 12 o'clock, what was the biggest issue in the campaign?
Joe Biden's age.
Joe Biden's age. Problem solved. Okay? Right. So now we move on to other things, right? Yeah. So I think to a real extent, when you're Pelosi and you're looking at this, you're saying, hey, biggest problem we have right now is age. I can't fix the whole campaign because even though I'm queen and I may be emperor or God, I can't fix everything.
The Lord Almighty.
But I could fix this, right? I could fix this problem right here. And that's the problem that she did fix. And so, taking it off the table, now it's a race. So whether or not you think, now if you want to make age an issue, you can. But of course, that's a problem because, you were just running with a guy 10 minutes ago who was 1,000 years old. I mean, and had age-related issues. So I mean, I think Kamala, just by showing up and looking young and being vibrant,
Yeah.
and acting young. Okay, she acts young. There's a big discussion right now on my social media of my refuge social media, which is Threads. Can Gen X claim Kamala Harris even though she's 2 months over the line? And there's a whole Jones generation apparently, which is like the borderline one, which is the thing that I just learned this morning. But
Yeah.
all the Gen Xers are like, yeah, she wears Converse, she's one of us. Or she dances really goofy, she's one of us. Or she doesn't get, she's one of us. And so like one of these things, all gets wrapped up in like who you perceive Kamala Harris to be. She's not going to be perceived as a boomer. Nope. She's going to be perceived as Gen X or younger. And so, that is helpful, especially if she runs a campaign that feels energetic, that feels youthful, that's forward-looking instead of backward-looking. If she starts talking about accomplishments, I wouldn't even talk about any of them. I would brush over them a little bit. 5 minutes of the speech, 25 minutes is about the future. If you could do that, you double down on what we all know about Kamala Harris, which is that she's younger than Donald Trump, and that is the contrast by itself.
Yeah, I do wonder about whether or not, I mean, a lot of these things are really true. The question that nobody knows is, can you microwave them in 48 hours? Like how many of them heat up and how many of them are just weird goo at the bottom of the tray? Because I think that if you gave this 2 years, if Joe Biden did say right after the midterms, you want to know what? I've done a great job. I'm still going to be an energetic leader, and here are the things that I want to do. But I want to open this up. And she was able to build a profile. We'll see. But then again, maybe that would have happened. She would have tried to build a profile, and it would have totally exploded because she has major liabilities as a candidate. We don't know. And the one thing that I would say that I think is an impairment is that the Democrats right now have a real like 1984 problem that I think that they're going to want to gloss over. That Joe Biden, strong, he's sharp as a tack, greatest leader ever, best president since FDR. 5 minutes later, we've thrown him in the dumpster. Kamala Harris has always been our nominee. She is the strongest candidate to ever run for president. And in an election that's going to turn right now on voters in those beer halls, in Wisconsin, in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, that's a whiplash for them that I think goes beyond the very online, very politically focused part of this country that was very clear on why Joe Biden had to go. You're going to have an explanation, and it's going to start with Joe Biden's speech on why this happened. And I do think it is right now the favorite Republican talking point. We'll see how much it lands. But if I'm the Democrats, I am worried about the question of why is Joe Biden still president? Because this is an unprecedented thing, and they're going to have an answer for it that is more than just happy days are here again, hit Act Blue.
Yeah, I've been saying this for 3+ weeks. You can't say I can't run for president and then turn around and say, but I can be president for the next 6 months.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's not like he's out in 3 weeks, right?
No.
It's not like you can just back up a moving truck and then we're out and he's already in, Century Village in Florida, right? No, 6 more months of this. And so, if you don't think that's going to be a distraction, you're not playing the same game here. So I think that there is that problem. And there is, of course, the problem that Kamala could just end up being the person we thought she was, right?
She could suck.
But she could totally suck. But you know what? Yeah. To Tom's point earlier, Biden did lose. He was not always a winner. He lost 2 different races for president badly. I mean, he screwed up. There was a plagiarism problem. Then there was just an incompetent campaign. I mean, Biden learned. And so you have to be in a situation can you believe or get yourself to believe that Kamala Harris has learned the lessons she needed to learn in those 4 years? Does Tuesdays with Joe for lunch teach you enough that you're ready for the storm that's coming at you? I don't know that that's enough. I mean, you should have gone. That's why you have a primary system, so that it gets you ready for a presidential race.
Well, and
if you don't do that, then you don't have that experience. You haven't been battle tested. You don't know how that's going to happen. It's going to be a tough race.
Biden learned the same lesson that Hillary learned. Run against Bernie Sanders in the primaries, and you can't lose.
Well, but there was an open field. You know, I mean, he did run against Kamala Harris. He ran against, Buttigieg.
Yes.
He ran against people who were good, right? And who were ready on paper. But he beat them. And so this is the problem that Kamala Harris has now, which is
a strange
the flip
way
side
to beat him.
of youth.
It was a strange way to beat him. He outlasted him.
Yeah, she took him out, right? It was the crust at the bottom of the microwave oven that you're talking about cleaning out. You wipe that crust out, and now we just have the sludge from yesterday's meal as opposed to like last year's meal, right? But once that's gone, you still have a microwave, right?
Yeah.
You still have 0 to 30, and then your mac and cheese is going to be ready. So, like, are you ready to eat that mac and cheese? Have you prepared that thing ready? I don't know. I mean, has she read the box? I don't know. I mean, we're going to find out relatively soon.
Yes, I got to hop off. I'm late.
Yeah, no, that's it. Tom LoBianco, 24site.news. Thank you so much. And, of course, Michael Cohen, the man who wrote the book on the modern political campaign. Thank you, boys.
Thank you, guys.
Gents.
And that'll wrap it up for us today. Politics, written and hosted by me, Justin Robert Young, for Dog and Pony Show Audio in Austin, Texas. If you want to email the show, it is theyoungamerican@gmail.com. Find clips of the program, TikTok, Justin R. Young, Instagram, Justin R. Young. Support our YouTube. We are continuing to grow on that platform. We greatly appreciate it. Live streams are there. Every show that we do now, both Patreon and regular, are also YouTube videos. So go support us. That is Politics on YouTube, youtube.com/@politics. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it is Justin R. Young. And you can support our show in audio form by heading to letter P, letter X, number 3, podcast.com. Also go and buy Michael Cohen's book, the Modern Political Campaigns book. Go support Tom LoBianco's venture with his pal Warren Rojas. That is 24site, 24SIGHT.news. You can support us with a one-time donation. PayPal.me/PayJury. Venmo is Justin-Young-20. Cash App is PX3Cash. And you can send me anything you'd like in the mail. P.O. Box 153184, Austin, Texas 78715. Of course, you can always get our bonus content at TakePoliticsSeriously.com. $3 tier gets you 2 bonus podcasts per week, covering all the news we miss on our free podcasting schedule. And our Titanic $10 tier gets your name read at the end of the show like these fine folks. TP, David, Nicholas, Whiskey Wolf, Sparky from Stevens, Florida, Will, SingleTreeTravel.com, Fat Tony's PJs from New York, the CFP, Gloria, my mom, Gray Zone, Peapaw, Jay, Sugar Brady, Marcus with a Q, DP4 Bongo, Sam Murphy, John, Niemeister, Edwin, Invoke Gloria Young for King of the New World Order, Edison, Jeremy, a dog named Checkers, Sarah Jeannie, Matthew, Dr. G, Neil, His Nerdiness Charles, Audrey, Stole Adler's Spot, Darren, Idris Arslanian, Bluefront and the Lenina, Berkeley Steven, Chad, Zombie Doc, Matt P, Chill, Adam, Chief Andy, Robert, Casey Paul, Dustin, Brad, D Laser, Nick, Just Another Pilot, Middle-Aged Mike, Utah, Jimmy Montana, the Jen, Alo, D, Really, Craig, and Andrew. You want to join their ranks? One place to do it. TakePoliticsSeriously.com. The next time that you hear my voice, we will not only have more to talk about because the news, friends, is a-flowing, but also there is one man who has finally come to visit the electoral career of Joe Biden one last time. The campaign undertaker claims his last victim before Election Day, an unexpected visit But we will do the campaign undertaker segment for Joe Biden on our next episode. Till then, this is your old pal Justin Robert Young saying some shows talk about politics, others talk about politics, and still more discuss politics. But this is the only show that dares discuss. Oh, 3.